Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a beautiful Monday morning, and it's that time on the Smooth Breakfast to get into the world of business on Business Express. My name is Ayokunmi. It's great to have you along on the ride. So many things to get into, so much to actually talk about, from what's going on in the petroleum sector to a little bit of what President Tinubu has been saying about tough decisions or hard decisions that are needed for development. And of course, over there in the UK Prime Minister also talking about hard decisions that need to be made, sacrifices, tightening of belts, and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Joining me to break it all down and make some sense of it is Rotus. Rotus, very good morning to you. Great to have you on Business Express.
Hey, good morning, Ayo. Good to see you to kick off another week. And good morning to everyone out there as well, all fellow Nigerians.
That's right, fellow Nigerians. That takes me back. Fellow Nigerians. It takes me back to certain speeches, but you know what? Let me not dive back into the past. Let's remain in the present and look forward to the future. You can join us on the conversation by sharing your thoughts on WhatsApp. As always, 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. You can also join us on YouTube where we're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. So, like I said earlier, a couple of things to actually get into. Let's talk about the NNPC, Dangote Refinery, Petrol, and so on and so forth. A couple of queues still out there. Maybe not as terrible as it was last week and a couple of weeks ago, but it's not entirely out, or we're not entirely out of the woods in that regard. And NNPC has been talking and saying that as it is right now, Dangote Refinery is free to sell products directly to marketers on willing seller, willing buyer basis. What does this actually mean for the market, Rotus? I mean, break it down for us.
Yeah, so there was the historic news made last week that the Dangote Refinery is finally selling, has produced petrol and is ready to sell it. First time in about 28 years for Nigeria to be doing that. And then there was an interesting announcement to the tune of the NNPC being the sole buyer of the product, which raised a few eyebrows because you don't want a situation where it's just one major buyer and one major seller that are discussing what price they will sell a product. Now, the refinery did say that, listen, anything that they can't sell, they will export elsewhere. So, oil marketers are a bit worried, saying, why can't we also be involved in buying petrol? So, the NNPC did come out with a statement saying that, well, look, and this is very crucial here. They said, willing buyer, willing seller means whomever in the market wants to come and buy should come and buy from the refinery. And so that essentially is the deregulated market that we've been looking for, because that is supposed to basically say that, look, whatever, depending on the cost of the cost of producing a liter of petrol, and then plus whatever margins are on top of that, that's the sale price. Now, remember, prior to this, we have been importing from overseas, and NNPCL was the sole importer. There was a foreign exchange dynamic to that. Other marketers, other people in the marketing, in the oil markets downstream space, for them to be able to import petrol into the country, that's refined petrol, they would have to source for foreign exchange to do that. And considering the cost of where FX is, that would have to be built into the landing cost and also built into what they sell to others. So, that would have meant it was really high. And of course, you had it being subsidized. So now, with it being produced here in Nigeria, and I understand October or so is when Naira sales of crude will begin to the refinery. That foreign exchange dynamic isn't part of the equation. So, and also, crucially, they did say that local refining does not guarantee lower prices. This is something I have said several times in the past. Others have said it as well. Just because you're refining locally does not mean that you're going to get lower, prices of what you had before. Those 185 Naira, 500 Naira prices. So Willing buyer, willing seller means any marketer can go to the refinery and purchase, purchase from it.
Okay, interesting thoughts there, Rotus. I mean, so this is something that's been said. I mean, I've heard you say it before. I've heard other people say it before as well that because there's petrol being refined, it doesn't mean that it's be 100 naira per liter and all that. But that being said, what then is the benefit to all Nigerians out there? I mean, if the price isn't as low as people think it's actually going to be.
Yeah, so the benefits is that you get availability, and you don't have to experience what we're experiencing now, which is scarcity. You can't buy a G wagon, or let me even use a G wagon. You can't buy a vehicle. We use any brand of vehicle you want at 50,000 naira. You can't, they're scarce at that price, right? You can buy a vehicle in Nigeria for a used one, depending on its, parameters, from in the millions, right? 2, 3, 4,
Right.
5 million and up. At that price, it's available. So the issue has been trying to provide subsidized fuel to the country has come at the expense of scarcity because of, the issue of the margins. At the benefit for Nigerians is that it will be readily available, and it will be readily available. You no longer have to queue up. There's no longer going to be supply disruptions. That really should be the focus. The price focus, we need to let this thing go, because folks have just been, this thing has allowed itself to grow into something else. And so the reality is now, we're seeing the reality, head on now, that just because you're refining local, because, there's other parameters that go into it, right? Just because you're cooking jollof rice at home does not mean that the jollof rice you cook at home is half the cost of the mama puts down the street. She's
Okay.
using the same
Okay.
ingredients that you're using to cook. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also, what is the price of cooking gas now, right? So there's all these things that go into what's the price of tomatoes, the price of salt, the price of a bag of rice, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the issue. How much, why isn't a local bag of rice, why isn't it half or less than half the cost of an imported bag of rice? So these are all the things that you get into when you start talking about these matters. Just because it's made here does not mean it's half the cost, or a
Right.
subsidized
Right.
cost price.
Very,
Yeah.
very right. I mean, stay with that. Stay with price matters. There was an interview that human rights lawyer Deji Adeoju did, where he alluded to the fact that Dangote should sell petrol at 500 naira a liter. I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is one of the reasons why folks like that gentleman can come out and state something like that, is because there's a void now of price. For some reason, the Dangote refinery is not stating what its cost price is to produce a liter of petrol. It's a private company. It's not compelled to have to tell us what its cost price is, but considering this is a national issue, and people are now thinking and believing that because petrol is refined locally, that somehow prices should be where they used to be. I think it's important just to set the record straight so that Nigerians know that it doesn't, because so that gentleman is incorrect, because remember, this was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. IPMAN, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, there was a representative, I think, that spoke to the Punch newspaper and alluded to, is it possible that Dangote refinery could sell petrol at 600 naira per liter and fix the price there? They immediately came out with a press release saying, nope, that's incorrect. We're not going to be fixing any prices, and it's not going to be 600 naira. So his reasoning is that because crude oil will be sold to the refinery in naira, that somehow that means that fuel should be selling for 500 naira. No, the naira sales of crude is the equivalent of the dollar price. So, if you're going to buy a
Right.
television for $1,000, $1,000 is 1.6 million. You are paying the naira equivalent of the dollar price. So, whether you're paying $1,000 or you're paying 1.6 million naira, it's still the same price. Just because it's being sold to you in Naira does not mean that $1,000 television suddenly becomes $500 or suddenly becomes $200. No, you're selling it at the cost price in USD, but at the Naira equivalent. The dollar itself is a commodity, it's an item. It also sells for a certain price. So you can't now say because you're selling it in Naira, all of a sudden it's 500 Naira. So that is something that needs to be dispelled. And this is why you shouldn't have an information void. We really need transparency in the downstream sector to clear things up.
We definitely need that transparency. It's been much talked about for a very long time. Let's quickly talk about President Tinubu, of course, talking over there in China to Nigerians living in China about the need to make hard decisions for development. Kind of like drawing parallels with what obtains in China in terms of their development infrastructure, saying that sacrifices must be made, hard decisions must be made. We heard that from him in China and also from the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the weekend. Is there any way we can draw parallels between both leaders' comments?
Yeah, so Keir Starmer and the Labour Party in the UK, they've just come into power. I think they've been in office for, is it less than 100 days or something? So they are preparing this week. They are looking to remove partial subsidies on heating for pensioners. It's called a winter fuel. If you're a pensioner, apparently you get some type of subsidy where they pay for, because winter is coming up, it's going to be pretty cold. So they want to remove it because they're saying that there's a 22 billion pound black hole. So Starmer came over the weekend. Also, they are going to release a report on the NHS, the health services thing, which they say, yeah. So basically, Starmer came out and said, look, you have to make unpopular decisions because unpopular decisions are hard. And it's in order for us to develop because of reform. And President Tinubu pretty much made the same point in China with respect to this fuel price issue, that look, if you want development, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. Also, Javier Milei in Argentina. I mean, these are three people who have come into power. Of course, the difference between Starmer and Tinubu is that Starmer had a different party, the Tories, which you can blame for everything. It's going to be a little tricky for President Tinubu to blame Buhari, who is an APC person like him. So but still, the parameters are similar with respect to the need to make tough decisions, and fuel being one of them.
All right. Let's take messages around it because time has absolutely flown by. Let me start with Tayo. Tayo says, I'm of the opinion that Dangote shouldn't be the only one swimming in this oil refining business, but Dangote started and finished his refinery in the midst of promises and lies. I insist that there must be local operators to challenge his influence in the market. Easier said than done. Bimbo says, yes, Rotus is right, but if Nigeria sells crude to Dangote and he sells refined PMS to Nigerians, the pressure on FX disappears for Nigeria. Ahmed from Ugudu says, please, Rotus, break it down for us because I find it difficult to understand that the saying that refining crude oil in Nigeria does not guarantee cheaper fuel. So if NNPCL refineries are working, it does not guarantee cheaper fuel. If crude oil is being extracted here in Nigeria and refined in Nigeria, that has eliminated pre-importation cost and it should be cheaper. I don't think the crude oil that is extracted and used in Nigeria should be priced in dollars. Dollars are not our functional currency. You know what? I mean, we're really out of time to have this conversation, but I'm pretty sure Rotus at some point, maybe on social media, for example, will explain better.
It's just crude oil. Crude is priced in dollars. Crude oil is the main ingredient, and as long as crude oil is up there, petrol is going to be where it is priced. It's crude oil. That's the main ingredient.
Okay, and finally from Yinka Bolu, he says, okay, good morning to you, Yinka. He says he noticed they wanted to squeeze life out of you. That's over the weekend on this fuel price issue. He says he really felt for you. Now he's not referring to me. He says benefits of local refining. Okay, Yinka, this is a very technical message, a lot of figures and breakdown. I'll look at this on the other side, but we're ready to call it a morning on Business Express. Thank you so much, Rotus, for joining me and making sense of it all. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Ayo. Thank you to everyone that sent messages. Catch you guys later.
All right. Have a great morning. And thank you all for being a part of Business Express. Keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast right here on Smooth 98.1. There's more great music for you as we get ready to, try to count down into Freshly Pressed at 7:30. Don't go anywhere.